My fiancé looked me in the eye at dinner and said, "I want a prenup. I can't risk my future on you." I smiled and agreed. Days later, her lawyer nearly fell silent when my disclosure revealed I had 10 times her wealth hidden behind a Honda and a modest apartment. I, 29 male, sitting across from my fiancée Victoria, 29 female, at our favorite steakhouse on a quiet evening, when she suddenly placed her fork down, straightened her posture, and gave me what I often called her business face. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and already planning our wedding for next summer. Up until that moment, everything felt smooth and predictable. But then she looked directly at me, pushed her salad around with her fork, and said calmly, "Daniel, we need to talk about something important." I nodded slowly, curious, and replied, "Sure, what's up?" That's when she dropped the bomb. "I want a prenup." For a few seconds, I just looked at her, my fork halfway to my mouth, before carefully setting it down. She leaned in a little closer, her voice firm. "I'm serious. I've worked too hard to risk losing everything if a divorce ever happened. My parents lost everything when they split, and I refused to be in that position." I could tell she expected me to argue, to get defensive, maybe even to be hurt. But instead, I took a sip of water and replied casually, "Makes sense. It's actually pretty practical." Her eyes widened in surprise, almost as if she had prepared for a fight that never came. "You're not upset?" she asked, tilting her head in genuine confusion. I shook mine and said, "Why would I be? It's smart thinking." She relaxed, a smile spreading across her face. "Oh, good. I was worried you'd take it personally. It's just, I need to protect my assets. My marketing firm is taking off. I have my condo, my investments. I can't risk my future on anyone, even you." That last line stung more than I wanted to admit, but I kept my expression calm, like nothing she said could rattle me. I even reached for my glass and said, "Totally understand. Actually pretty smart thinking." Her face lit up, and she reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You're amazing," she whispered. "Most guys would be offended, but you get it." I nodded, smiling back at her, while inside I was thinking to myself, you really have no idea who you're talking to right now. Because here's the truth, Victoria believed I was just some middle-class tech consultant, a hardworking guy but nothing more. She never asked about the details of my career, and I never volunteered them. She loved to talk about her success, her clients, her plans for expanding her business. She boasted about her condo, her BMW, her investments. To her friends, she was already a rising star in marketing. But what she didn't know was that behind my simple lifestyle, my 2015 Honda Accord, my modest apartment, my Target clothes, I was sitting on wealth she couldn't even imagine. 5 years earlier, I had built a piece of software for restaurant inventory management. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, but it worked perfectly. I licensed it to a major hospitality company, and even now, the residuals alone brought me around $40,000 a month. Add to that my 4 rental properties, my investment portfolio I had been growing since I was 18, and the sale of a previous startup that she thought had failed, which actually brought me a 7-figure payoff, and you could say I was doing just fine. I chose to live modestly because I learned early on that money can twist people, can turn relationships into transactions, and I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for the size of my bank account. So that night, when Victoria confidently told me about her lawyer drafting a prenup, I simply smiled and said, "Sounds good. I'll have my lawyer review it." She laughed out loud, amused. "You don't even have a lawyer," she teased. But all I said was, "I'll get one." She left dinner practically glowing, talking about how mature we were being and how this would make our marriage stronger because there would be no financial concerns. The second she left, I pulled out my phone and called my old college roommate, Tommy, who was now a family law attorney. "Tommy, I need a prenup drafted," I said calmly. He chuckled on the other end. "Finally telling Victoria about your money?" "Nope," I replied. "She wants a prenup to protect her assets from me." Tommy laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. A few days later, Tommy connected me with Eleanor, a specialist in prenups who looked like she could eat hedge fund managers for breakfast without breaking a sweat. I handed her my financial records, and she raised an eyebrow. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "Your fiancé thinks you're after her money, but in reality, you have about 10 times her net worth?" I corrected gently, 12 times if you count the patent I just filed. Eleanor smiled, sharp and dangerous. "This," she said, "is going to be fun." Over the next few days, Victoria was practically giddy about her prenup. She bragged to friends about how progressive she was, saying things like, "I told Daniel straight up, I'm not risking my future on him, and he totally understood. He knows I'm the primary breadwinner." At a dinner party, she repeated that exact line in front of our friends, and James, one of my tenants who knew about my rental properties, nearly spit out his wine. I shot him a look that said, "Don't you dare say a word." Then came the first draft from her lawyer. It was aggressive, almost insulting. Separate property stayed separate, no alimony, which was fine. But then the terms got worse. Any gift over $500 needed written proof to transfer ownership. The engagement ring would return to her in divorce. If we had children, she would have final say on all financial decisions. And in the event of divorce, I would have to vacate the marital home within 30 days, even if it was in my name. Eleanor reviewed it, her lips curling into a smirk. "She's treating you like a potential gold digger," she said. I nodded, keeping calm. "Draft our counter-proposal. Make it fair. Standard 50-50. What's mine is mine, what's hers is hers, and what we build together we share. But add full financial disclosure from both parties." Eleanor's eyes sparkled. "When do I send it?" she asked. "Wait for my signal," I replied. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Victoria walked in wearing her sharpest power suit, her lawyer beside her. She looked at me like she was about to close a deal. "Mr. Garrett," her lawyer, opened confidently, "we trust you've had time to review our terms." Eleanor smiled calmly and slid our counter-proposal across the table. "My client agrees to most of the basics with a few modifications. But first, we require full financial disclosure." Garrett nodded, pulled out Victoria's financials, and placed them on the table. Eleanor reached into her folder, slid out my papers, and placed them next to his. Silence filled the room. Garrett's eyes widened as he read through my records. Victoria snatched them from his hands, her face growing paler by the second. "This can't be right," she whispered. Eleanor spoke smoothly, "All verified and documented." Victoria looked at me, shaking. "Daniel, what is this?" I sat back calmly. "My financial disclosure. Like you wanted." She flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. 4 rental properties? Software licensing bringing in $40,000 a month? You sold a company for over $2 million? And you drive a Honda? I smiled casually. "Great gas mileage." Her lawyer tried to suggest a break, but Victoria snapped, "No, Daniel, why didn't you tell me about this?" I looked her straight in the eye. "You never asked. You always said money shouldn't matter in love." That day changed everything. Over the next 48 hours, she went through every emotion imaginable: anger, denial, bargaining. She sent furious texts about how I made her look like a fool, how everyone would think she was marrying down. Then she begged me to keep it quiet, to hide my wealth so she could keep her image as the successful, independent woman who didn't need a man's money. Her pride was wounded, and instead of celebrating the truth that we could both be successful together, she was obsessed with maintaining her brand. I refused. Weeks later, the wedding was officially called off. Her own lawyer even dropped her after realizing she wanted him to draft an NDA to force me to hide my wealth, something he considered fraudulent. When she finally walked into my office, seeing my corner suite for the first time, she just stood there stunned. "I really never knew you at all," she said quietly. But the truth was, she did know me. She just didn't know my bank balance. In the end, Victoria left her ring on my desk and walked away. She tried to spin stories to friends, painting me as deceptive, but the narrative didn't stick. People saw through it. Her business began to struggle, her reputation cracked, And eventually even she had to face the truth, that her obsession with being financially superior destroyed what could have been a beautiful future. As for me, I moved on. Months later, I met someone new, Grace, an ER doctor. On our third date, I told her about my wealth. She smiled casually and said, "Cool, want to split the check?" That's when I knew I had finally found the right person. Sometimes, a prenup isn't just a document. It's a mirror that shows who people really are. And what I saw in Victoria that day was someone who valued image over love, pride over truth. That's not a partner. That's a stranger.